Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining me tonight on episode 24, season 2, The Standoff with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. We're here live every Wednesday on Facebook throughout the season. Good evening, Richie. Another good win, good weekend, but it was quite predictable, being the first time we actually got all our picks right. And topping it all off, we had a Warriors win, and also a win that gave us plenty of talking points. So what did you think of the round?
Yeah, evening, Brad. Yeah, enjoyable round. Yeah, a lot of talking points indeed. A bit of sledging, a bit of biff, and the top 8 races heating up. So exciting times.
Definitely. Now, while we're here live on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m, you can also catch our show at your convenience on our podcast at iHeartRadio. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to be covering everything you need to know in the week that was rugby league, including our top stories of the week. We'll then go and review the round 21 matches and our picks. Then we'll stop to answer some questions from you guys, as well as some questions we have for each other, before we review round 22 and make our picks. And then, time pending, hopefully we can cover some Super League. So remember to send us comments and questions throughout the show, and we may as well just jump straight into the top stories, Richie.
Sure.
First one's kind of a non-story now. But the NRL has stated that they're open to having the grand final in New Zealand, depending on how their situation goes over there. But Jacinda Ardern's come out recently and said that if they wanted to bring it here, there's no bending of the rules. They'd have to go through quarantine, which is basically squashed any reality of it happening, as slim as I thought it was anyway. What do you think? One, on their openness to bring it over here, and two, the fact that it probably won't happen.
It would have been cool to bring it here. I've never made it to a grand final myself, and that would have been my best chance yet. Always wanted to go to one. I can kind of understand the stance of not bending rules, but yeah, it's nice that the NRL were open to looking at the possibility, because, you know, it's talks of having a big game here, whether it be a grand final or a state of origin, have been floated in the past. And, you know, hopefully one day that happens and we can get to go along.
Yeah, definitely. I think the closest I got to going to a grand final was 2011 when the Warriors were there. I got tickets, but I couldn't get flights. So a friend of ours bought the tickets off me to go and enjoy the game instead. But yeah, I think it'd be great if they came here. But there's no beating around the bush. It's not a let's give it to New Zealand because they deserve it. It's a money thing. It's
for sure.
Have a full stadium at Eden Park, as horrible as that stadium is, or an empty stadium in Australia. At the moment, it looks like that won't happen anyway, because I think this week they're up to 50% capacity. So you would imagine by the time we get to grand final time, they'll be open to 100% again. And I've still got my money on Suncorp being the venue. But yeah, we'll keep our ears to the ground when more of that news comes up for our next show, hopefully. But next bit of news, some Gold Coast Titans news. Anthony Don has announced his retirement at the end of the season. I watched briefly parts of his conference. I didn't watch all of it, but he was quite emotional announcing his retirement. He's been there for a long time. He's their leading try scorer. He's got, I think it's 85 tries. For me, he's never been like a superstar, as we like to coin them, but he's always been a constant with the Titans. And if you know he's out there, you know he's definitely going to do his best to get points on the board for them. So good luck to whatever he's deciding to do after his retirement. But yeah, a great player for the game.
Yeah, 100%. You could see the emotion during that presser. You know, you could tell he's loved his time at the Titans, and like you say, he's never really kicked on to become a rep player or anything like that. Always the next tier down, but always super consistent and always found the try line with a decent amount of regularity with the Titans. So, you know, he'll go down as a very good Titans player, and all the best for him.
Definitely. Next bit of news, we'll probably have a little bit of a discussion around it due to the circumstances, but the Bulldogs have borrowed Ryan James and Corey Horsburgh from the Raiders for the next 2 rounds. They're down on players due to injuries and suspensions. No, there's a lot of talk in the Warriors fandom about, the Raiders want to keep their top 8 chances alive, so they start giving players out to teams playing against the Warriors. But I don't think it's that, because the Raiders were willing to offload players to us a few weeks ago as well. So they're adamant to try to get more of their players game time. My concern, as we talked before we went live, my concern with it is the Bulldogs are getting loan players due to suspensions. Mainly, they got a couple of suspensions this week, plus Luke Thompson's still currently serving one. And I'm not a big fan of teams getting players after they've had players be ill-disciplined. The players get punished, but the team gets punished at the same time with a suspension. So you're kind of letting them off the hook. But on the other hand, the Warriors loaned the Dragons Jermaine Tanoa-Brown. So we're not really one to talk either, but I don't like the look.
I'm sorry, but I thought this was Thug Life Brad, and he's now saying that he's not worried about it, that players shouldn't be allowed to be replaced if they're suspended. Oh, geez, I'm amazed. I'm flabbergasted.
Well, I don't think any of them should have been suspended anyway. But
yeah,
but the fact that they are means the decision's been made. No, but what do you think about it, Richie?
Yeah, I don't really buy into any of the conspiracy theories around them loaning players, so we have less of a chance. But yeah, I don't agree with a team being loan players for suspensions, for suspension coverage. Especially with Ryan James and Corey Horsburgh, those are 2 pretty handy players. It's a bit of an upgrade for the Bulldogs pack. So it's kind of just unlucky for us Warriors fans that this week they're injected into the team. Hopefully they don't fit in well in the team chemistry and have a negative effect from our point of view.
You never know. And yeah, we're also facing a few suspensions ourselves this week. You see, Simon's put a comment. So good evening, Simon. He said, I'd like the grand final to be played in Auckland, but realistically, he doesn't think it happens. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think it would be great, but don't think it will happen. And Nigel's also here too.
Nigel.
Bless you.
Bless you,
thank you. Good evening, Nigel. Next bit of news is Cody Ramsey from the Dragons. In the early stages of their game this week, he had a head clash and snapped 2 of his teeth. And it looks like his season could be over because he needs some surgery on his face. And horrible accident, horrible to watch. I only watched it like 5 or 10 times.
Wear your mouth guard. Hey?
Yeah, exactly. It's a great reminder. Apparently, he's not a fan of wearing mouth guards.
Thug life.
He's not a fan of wearing mouth guards. But yeah, I think he will from now on. I think it's a great reminder for all the kids watching too. If they see NRL players out there without their mouth guards, they're probably not going to do it. And this is a great reminder of why you should, because accidents like this can happen.
It's not a nice way to go out.
No, not at all. And more horrible news for the Eels this time. Reed Mahoney is out for the season after injuring his shoulder. So I imagine you watched the game, you would have seen when he came off, he was quite emotional.
Yeah.
So it was clear that it was serious and really disappointing for him. I think he's had a great year. And I think it really hurts Parramatta and their finals chances. As bad as they've started to look, he's kind of been like a lightning rod for them in the middle of the park. So without him there, it has a lot of concerns for me. What do you think his injury is going to do impact wise?
I just feel, as a player, I feel for him. He like you said, he's been having a cracking year, and he only missed playing State of Origin for the first time because he picked up an injury. Now he's come back, and the season's pretty much gone. So, you feel for him as a player, but the impact on his team could be major. I mean, he's been one of their best players all year, and we already talked last week about the Eels' run home into the finals. It's it's a bit of a gauntlet they have to run, so this hurts their chances even more.
100%. Next bit of news, still on the injury front, Jason Taumalolo has been ruled out this week due to a fractured hand. It's the third time this year he's fractured a hand. I don't know what he's doing at training, but he needs to stop it. It's puzzling. I haven't seen someone get an injury, a rare injury like that so often in 1 year.
Maybe he's got a Todd Payton photo up on the wall and he's punching it. Not too happy about being shifted around the forward pack. I don't know, but yeah, it's a tough one for him and the Cowboys. I mean, he's probably by far and away the Cowboys' best player on paper, so they don't have any chance of making the finals anyway. But they'll want to finish the season a bit stronger than how they've been traveling the last 8 weeks, and this doesn't help them.
Exactly. Next bit of news, we've got Clint Gutherson's reportedly looking for $1 million a season for his next contract. Richie, do you think he's worth it? If it was me as the Eels, I'd be telling him to jog on. So the same. I think that $1 million a year, I think, is a ridiculous amount of money at the best of times. But you look at the players that are getting $1 million a year, and I don't think he's at their level.
No. I mean, he's not full-time cracking State of Origin, so he's not a full-time rep player. He hasn't won a grand final. What have you done that's commanding $1 million? I don't think. I struggle to see him getting that kind of money unless he goes to a club that's desperate for a good fullback and willing to.
I think I have a lot of arguments about Gutho in this household. I think he is a very good player. I don't think he's a great player. I think he doesn't have the skill set that makes you a great player, but he counteracts that with effort. So I always say he busts his ass for you 100%, and that makes up for some deficiencies in his game. Throwing a very large rock in my glass house here, but I don't think he's at that level. You look at like your Nathan Clearys, your Tommy Turbos, and that the impact that we've seen with Manly and the Panthers when they're not there, you don't see that when Gutho's not there. They kind of have someone that they can slot in and replace him if they need to. And if they were looking for a fullback for $1 million, I'm sure there's better options out there. I don't want them to do it, but you could look at Joey Manu, and I would see you giving $1 million to him and saying, "Come to the Eels and be our fullback." And then there's better places to use that money.
Absolutely. If you want to compare to somebody, look at somebody like James Tedesco at the Roosters. The Eels lost Mitchell Moses, and then they started losing a bunch of games on the trot, whereas at the Roosters they lost. I think they're running on about 60-something% of their salary cap at the moment. They've lost a huge chunk of their squad, and Tedesco is just carrying that team, and they're still winning. So that's the difference for me.
Losing 60% of their salary cap just means they're almost at the same level as everyone else's cap now. So it's fine. But no, it's going to be interesting to see how it develops, because if the Eels don't want to give $1 million, I don't see any other NRL teams giving that type of money. Nigel said his try celebrations deserve some coin. He's got to start scoring more of them though to be worth that much money. And Simon said, how long does he have on his 10-year contract? That will be for Jason Taumalolo.
Yes.
When did he sign his 10-year contract?
It was a few years ago now, wasn't it?
I'd say he'd be over halfway through it now, right?
Yeah, it could be pretty close to around halfway.
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure.
Edge on the side of caution, say he's like halfway through.
Yeah.
Which, that's not a good sign, which is, again, a few weeks ago when we talked about the Payne Haas situation, that's the risk you run with signing a 10-year deal with a young player that you want to keep just in case something like this happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, not good. And then we got a bit of signing news. We've got 3 of them. We got Brody Croft has signed with Salford in the Super League for 2 years. Will Hopewadi has also gone to the Super League, joining St. Helens for 2 years. And then to flip and reverse it, we've got George Burgess coming back from the Super League and joining the Dragons on 2 years. And there's rumours that Moses Mbai isn't far away from joining the Dragons too.
Yeah.
So I've thrown a lot of names at you there, Richie, but what do you think about the signings?
Brody Croft and Will Hopewadi going to Super League, that's a good move. I think I'm not wanting to throw shade at them, but I think they'll go quite well over there, and that's kind of their talent level. And then the reverse of that, George Burgess, he's killed it in the NRL before, and that's a very good signing for the Dragons. Already on top of getting Jaden Sewer, so the Dragons pack has added a bit of quality there for next year.
Yeah, so how I predicted them to be wooden spoon this year and next year, I think I'll be wrong again. I think their team's starting to shape up to definitely not be wooden spoon. I wouldn't be putting money on them to go deep into the playoffs or anything by any means, but I think they'll at least be competitive, which I think is what we want to see with how one-sided this competition's been this year. I think if we can get a few more of those bottom 8 teams being more competitive more regularly, I think it'll make for a better competition.
For sure.
Next bit on the kind of news, there's rumors that the Raiders are interested in offering Ash Taylor a contract. Quite a low contract, only around $250 a year compared to the, I think he's on $1 million a year with the Titans, which was a bad investment on Gold Coast part. But what do you think about this? I seem to have a up and down relationship with Ash Taylor. Sometimes I think he's quite capable, and then other times I wonder what he's doing out there.
Yeah. He's actually not been going too bad the past few weeks with the Titans. And I think the young man they thrown in at number 7, what's his name, Sexton or something like that?
Yeah,
what's his...
Toby Sexton.
Yeah, he's sort of been controlling things, and I think Ash Taylor quite likes, he's not a half that's going to dominate a game. So, he's got a lot of talent, but if he's got a dominant half with him, I think Fogarty beforehand as well with the Titans, and then that's sort of allowed Ash to sort of play off the cuff a bit more and not take on so much of the playmaking himself. But I'm not sure if that's what the Raiders are after. I mean, they've already got Whiten who plays at 6, and they're really looking to replace George Williams, aren't they? And he was sort of the playmaker that did the bulk of the playmaking.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I see Simon said he thinks Gold Coast is a better option than Canberra for Ash Taylor. I think ideally, if it was me, I would take any contract to live on the Gold Coast, personally. But the thing is, Gold Coast don't want him. And so I think he will take the job. I don't really see him blossoming at the Raiders. I'll be happily proven wrong if we go back on this, if it does happen and he goes there. But before this came up, it was basically looking like Super League was going to be his only option. And I think most players will take an NRL option over Super League unless the money is staggeringly good. But yeah, time is going to tell on this. We have to keep our ears on the ground and see what actually happens, because it's just a recent rumor that no one's really said much about other than the Raiders feigning some interest.
It's the risk you take throwing $1 million and that kind of money at somebody so young. I think the Titans threw that money at him when he was still quite a young man, and he's never quite lived up to that price tag, really, has he?
Yeah, it was a knee-jerk reaction because they didn't want to lose him at that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose that's the risk and reward. If you want to make sure you keep a player, you have to pay overs to keep them, and they're either going to live up to your expectation or fail. Yeah, well, fail's a hard term. Struggle to go up to your expectations, probably a bit kinder to say. And the last bit of news is quite recent, so I haven't got a lot of research on it. But Phil Gould has proposed a short summer competition to run prior to Christmas to help youngsters that have been hit by the cancellation of the lower leagues for the second year running due to COVID. The article I read, he talked about how Jersey Flegg and the likes haven't got to have constant competition. So you've got young guys getting thrown into NRL due to injury. They haven't been playing for a while. And it could be a good way to keep them all in shape and give them a bit of football to help develop. I think it's a great idea. Yeah, 2 years is a long time. A lot of them haven't been able to train together or anything. So it'd be good by Christmas time. Things hopefully have opened up a bit more, and I think it would be a good move. The Warriors have been hit hard with this. They had a Jersey Flegg competition or a team last year before COVID struck, and they were actually playing really well with all our youngsters. And then since COVID's happened, the Warriors have cherry-picked a couple to keep with them in the camps, and the rest have come back to New Zealand and are playing lower grades. And it's no disrespect to our lower grades here, but it's not the same level that they'd be getting that experience. So I think it's a good idea. It's very fresh, so I'm not sure if you'd even been able to see this news yet, but do you have any ideas on it or any thoughts?
No, I hadn't seen that yet, Brad. Caught me on the hop a wee bit. But I mean, if it does sound like a cool idea, and if anybody's going to have a cool idea about those sort of developmental pathways, it's Gus Gould, isn't it? That's sort of his bread and butter, and he loves that kind of stuff. So, yeah, sounds like a neat idea. I mean, there's a lot of merit there. A lot of that next tier down, missing a lot of footy through COVID. So, yeah, interesting one.
Yeah, before we go, I got Simon said, wasn't Phil the one who advocated scrapping the 20s comp? I can't confirm or deny. I can't remember. It feels like a lifetime ago. I think a lot of the complaints with under 20s competition was it wasn't really developing players the way they wanted. If you recall, it was a very attack-heavy competition where teams could score left, right, and centre, but none of them knew how to defend. And when you go that next step up to NRL, if you can't defend, you're not going to last long. So I think that might have been part of it. I can't put words in his mouth. I'll add it to the list when I try to get more info on this news as well, so I can come back with a better answer for you next week, Simon. So I'll look into that and find out exactly who were the ones at the front of cutting under 20s and if they actually gave us a legitimate reason why. But yeah, that's all I had for the news right now. So we may as well crack straight into the reviews, cool. Which started on Thursday night with the Knights defeating the Broncos 28-20. Knights had a 4-day turnaround due to the delay last week with the COVID break. And I thought they looked a bit sloppy at times, but they got the job done against what I thought was quite a spirited Broncos outfit. What did you think?
You hit the nail on the head, Brad. I mean, the Knights, as we talked about last week, sort of have a nice, easy. Well, you don't want to say easy, but they have a decent run home if they want to make the 8, and they've just started coming into some form, winning a couple on the trot. So the keywords you used was get the job done, and it was scrappy at times, but they ticked that one off, and they still have one more game against the Broncos in their run home, but. Yeah, in the Broncos game, they have shown a number of times this year that they have had a couple of blowouts this year, but all in all, compared to last year, they show a lot more fight, especially with Staggs not there. You know, that's a big loss. So they're hanging there well, and they weren't too far off in this game, really. Definitely,
yeah. They missed Katoni Staggs, but I think Tesi Nui, who have probably butchered his name, apologies. I think he had quite a strong game for them. He scored a nice try and he set up another. But I think the difference in this game for me was Mitchell Pearce.
Yeah, he went well.
He's made his return. He scored a try just before halftime, I believe. He had a try assist, and his kicking game was pretty much on point, which is the biggest thing the Knights have been missing since he's been gone. They've lacked that kicking ability in the direction that he offers. And I think if they do want to make a decent run into the playoffs, they need to start getting that ball out to Bradman Bist again. He played quite well, but there were a lot of stages where they kept flowing the other way. And we talked about it the week before, when they kept going out to the left where he was, that's where all the points were coming, and almost coming at will. So they need to get him involved.
It's all the pieces starting to fall into place for the Knights again, because they got Bradman Best back now, and now Pearce has come back and was looking good right off the get go. But it's on top of their pack, because they've got and we spoke a little bit about it as well. Their pack's a very good pack. The Saifidi boys are some of the best props in the game, and I thought Frizzell had a really good game this weekend as well. It looked nice and dangerous. So yeah, it's looking good for the Knights if they can hold their composure and keep their troops healthy. They've got a good shot at that 8.
Definitely, yeah, and they got a favourable draw, which is always handy. And yeah, for the Broncos, yeah, they showed fight, and they've got nothing to play for but pride now. But they're not going to be easy beats like they were last year. I think that's the biggest difference. They do have that fighting spirit. So yeah, hopefully they don't have it in round 2023 when the Warriors play them. But yeah, it would be interesting to see how they go. As long as they keep the troops they got right now and they don't get any more significant injuries, I think they could cause a few headaches. But that's what makes it interesting when you get to this time of the year.
And they've got pretty much play most of their games at home now due to COVID too, don't they? yeah, they're getting help there, which is good. First game on Friday, we had the Raiders defeating the Dragons 20-12. It was quite a scrappy game for me, but it was one the Raiders needed to win. They've got a very tough draw. And one thing I took out of this game was in the press conference, Ricky Stewart wasn't happy with the constant 6 again calls for offside, and said they need to be penalties again. What do you think about it, Richie? I know we talked about it briefly before we went on. Yeah, we did, and I side with Ricky on that one. I mean, it sort of leaves it open for manipulation. Teams giving away a 6 again early in the count, getting offside, even from scrums, being offside, just getting up there quick and slowing the ruck down right from the start and ensuring the other team has a slow start to their set and sort of lose all momentum. And the only cost out of that is conceding 1 tackle, which basically makes it worth it, doesn't it? So I kind of agree with that. I wouldn't mind offsides being penalised rather than a 6 again, because that's a far bigger deterrent. If you're going to give away a penalty and then they just kick 20, 30, 40 metres downfield and start their set off in a nice attacking position. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I joke about it a lot watching Warriors games here, where it seems that the Warriors always get 6 again on the first tackle. They get their first nice big hit. It looks like they're about to start some momentum. They get held down, or they get an offside call and get just that extra tackle, which doesn't really do much. But the defensive line gets to set themselves again. It's being a devil advocate here. It's completely in line with the rules that have been set. So if coaches are always going to find a way to manipulate the rules to their advantage, and this is something that it does. So yeah, I think it needs to be addressed. I think they went too far with the 6 again. I really liked the 6 again last year, but then I think making everything basically a 6 again this year, I haven't enjoyed. Also, it doesn't help if it happens. I spend the next couple of minutes trying to figure out what actually happened to cause it. And yeah, I think they need to go back to the drawing board and just fine tune it a bit. So we're not got a penalty every couple of minutes, but we actually have some bit of structure going on, and something that punishes teams for trying to cheat the system, if you will.
Agreed.
But yeah, the Dragons, they started strong. They were leading 8-0 early on, but the Raiders surged back into the game. Simons also said the 6-again rule slowly turning the NRL into the other code, the union one with a constant position to one team. Yeah,
fair comment.
Definitely. But yeah, the Dragons, they started strong.
Hasn't been the whole point of the 6 games. It's sped up the game, which has been so you're tiring out teams so that towards the end of the game you get a bigger advantage, essentially.
Yeah, essentially.
That's the idea. It's just not working out that way.
Right. Yeah, I think the better teams manipulate it a lot and know that they can give away a 6 again on purpose early in the count, slow their momentum down, and basically only cost them one tackle.
Yeah. But yeah, I think for the Raiders, though, they surged back into the game on the back of some good performances from Sam Williams and Tom Starling. I've always liked Sam Williams. He's been like a little battler. He reminds me a lot of Mason Lino. There you go.
Sure. Yeah.
He's kind of like that half that doesn't get a lot of chances because he's behind better halves. But then if something happens and you need him to step in and fill that gap, say we need you for 3 weeks, he'll go out there and do it. He's never going to be a half that's going to lead a team to a premiership by any means, but he's not going to let you down when you put him out there. And I think he's taken this opportunity with George Williams getting homesick and running away. He's really taken it with 2 hands, and full credit to him. But yeah, as we mentioned earlier, the Raiders also have a tough road home. And I think if they're going to be a playoff contender, they're going to need their pack to step up. They need to find another level and help out that spine a bit more. Otherwise, I don't see them making the 8 if they can't get their ducks in a row in that way.
Yeah, especially struggling. I mean, I thought they struggled a lot more than I thought they would against the Dragons, who have been hit hard through suspension and all that carry on. So, and losing Cody Ramsey early on in the match too. So, yeah, I mean, the Raiders have been on and off all year, mostly off, and they've only just sort of started coming right. But yeah, I tend to agree with you, Brad. They're in a good position though. I mean, their fate's still in their hands if they can just find a way to keep winning. Yeah.
And yeah, the Dragons, like you said, they had players out suspended. It was the last week of their barbecue punishment. And yeah, I think losing Cody Ramsey early on didn't help them either, but they were out there fighting above their weight, as they have most of the season. Hence the wooden spoon prediction I gave them. I thought they were rubbish. But I think they're slowly settling into where they belong on the ladder, which is in the bottom 8.
Yeah.
And that takes us to the next game on Friday, the Rabbitohs defeating the Eels. Oh, yep.
Did any of the TV networks sort of jump on this and give them a quick and do a celebrity kind of chef show with these guys, a barbecue chef show for the? That would be a great advertising piece of work. But anyway, just my.
I think Paul Vaughan could have got a barbecue sponsorship or something.
He could have.
But, yeah, the next game was the Rabbitohs defeating the Eels 40-12. I'll let you start this one off. What did you think of this game?
It highlights the sort of hole that the Eels have fallen into, and they've been a top 4 side most of the year. And they've been struggling the past few weeks, and now losing Reid Marnie puts them in an even bigger hole. But it also, on the other side of the coin, the Rabbitohs, I think, further cemented their title credentials. The only thing for the Rabbitohs is the times that they've played the top two teams this year, they sort of got hammered and had 50 points put on them. But I think this is a different Rabbitohs team we're looking at right now. I mean, they've hit a purple patch, and all their big gun players, Latrell, Mitchell, Cody Walker, they're irrepressible right now. So, it's going to take a fine team to stop that run they're on. I mean, it would be really interesting to see them play a Storm right now or a Panthers.
Yeah, I think the attack that we've seen from the Rabbitohs has been there all year, but it's the defense that's let them down. I think in the past month, I've been really impressed with how their defense has improved. I think if you put them up against the Panthers of the Storm right now, I'm not saying they're going to beat them, but I think it would be a lot closer. It wouldn't be a 50-point drubbing like we saw. So, yeah, you can credit them 100% on their improved defense. I think that's been the difference. Because, yeah, this attack, we've seen them scoring tries like they did in this game since round one. As long as they remember to hold on to the ball, they can do a lot of damage with it. Obviously, Adam Reynolds was kind of the talk of the town after this game. He's now the Rabbitohs' leading point scorer. He kind of was basically trying to go for the 2 points whenever they could because he was trying to get that record. But I think not only him, I think the usual suspects in Latrell Mitchell and Cody Walker were on fire again. And they just, they're looking scary at the moment. But we want to kind of, this was meant to be competition. The Eels are meant to be one of the top 4 teams right now. And they just don't look it. They're struggling on attack. They look like turnstiles on defense. And I don't know what's happened at the Eels, but it needs to be addressed quickly before playoffs. Perhaps it's time for a good old-fashioned honesty session.
Yeah, perhaps. What do you think it's just a confidence thing, or they've just lost a couple of key troops at the wrong time and fallen into a hole? What do you reckon?
It could be a bit of both. It's still hard to sit there and blame injuries when you've got the Roosters doing what the Roosters are doing.
Yeah, you're right.
There's, that patch where the Eels lost Mitchell Moses didn't help. But the Roosters lost Luke Keary and haven't really, I'm not going to say haven't really noticed him missing, but they've got enough talent to get together. So the Eels, if the Eels don't have that depth, then they definitely can't be wasting $1 million on Gutho. They need to use half of that money to get a couple more players in.
Absolutely. Do you think Mitchell Moses might be a little gun shy since returning? I think that's having fractured his back, that can't be a very comfortable injury to bounce back from into a physical game like that. Maybe he's a bit gun shy.
I think so, and I think he's still not a leading half. Yeah, I think he's a good. I don't want to say follower. He's a good live wire to have with a solid half next to him.
Off the cuff kind of player.
Yeah, at the moment they've kind of got 2 of those in Moses and Dylan Brown. So I don't think that helps them, but that's what they re-signed Mitchell Moses knowing that they've got Dylan Brown there that can effectively do the same role. So it might have been time to let Moses go and pick a more steady half potentially if they want to go from that being a constant top 4 team to actually being a premiership contender, which they have never really been. They've always been like in the scheme of things, but you kind of write them off when it comes to who's going to make the grand final, or at least I have.
For a long while now.
Yeah. But that takes us to the next game, probably the game we end up talking an hour about. The Warriors defeating the Sharks 18-16. Second win in a row for the Warriors and also the second win by an 18-16 margin. I thought for the majority of the game, the Warriors looked the better side, with the exception of one person. I think Adam Fanua-Blake and Matt Lodge really got the forwards moving forward. They were kind of strolling at ease up the field, and I thought Chanel Harris-Tavita and Sean O'Sullivan partnered really well in the halves.
Yeah, they were good.
And yeah, overall was a good performance with the exception of one person. But before we get into that one person, what were your thoughts on the game?
I agree with your thoughts about our pack, AFB and Lodge. When those two play together, they're a great partnership. One thing I wonder, do you think, are we approaching it right with our interchange? I know you've had your thoughts on this, but even I think in his press conference, Nathan Brown touched on it as well. Maybe, we've got to look at ways how we're rotating them off, because seems to be when one or two of them go off, then we lose a bit of momentum.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think they did show some improvement on it this week, because in weeks prior, it's basically been they've started and then you pull them up both off at the same time.
Yeah.
Where this time they tried to stagger it a bit. So one of them would go off while the other stayed on a little bit longer, and then you push them. There's got to be a way. I think they're going to have to work out a way where you've basically got one on the field at all times. We know both of these guys can play long minutes, but even if it's a case of, I don't know how you do it. There's got to be a way around it, because at the moment you can't really rely on the guys coming off the bench they don't let the side down, but they're just not at that same level of dominance that these two do. So it's going to be a bit of a to and fro at the moment. I think you wouldn't notice it as much if you had the likes of Tohu Harris and that's still out there. But until why you don't have those experienced guys, you need to do something.
That's a good segue, actually, Brad, bringing up Tohu Harris, because I was a bit worried when he picked up the season-ending injury, but I thought our back row was really, really good. And obviously, we spoke about him last week, Euan Aitken. He looks really good there and runs really good, strong, hard lines. Josh Curran, what a game he had. I think Curran was brilliant, apart from at the end of the game, tripping over at the edge of the field, which was quite funny. But he had a great game, and I think our back row's got a really nice balance to it and looked good the past couple of weeks. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so Curran, for my review that I wrote this week, I had Curran as my warrior of the match. I thought he was outstanding. Attack-wise, he partnered up with Reece Walsh really nicely. They were causing a lot of havoc up the middle of the pitch. He did a nice goal line offload to Reece Walsh for Reece's try. It was almost in an identical move to the last time Reece scored. They did the exact same play last time as well. So they're really communicating together well. And defensively, he's probably one of the better defenders we have right now. He's just always in there doing the dirty work, which is good. It's nice to see a guy that can get in there, do all the stuff that no one wants to do, but still also contribute on the other side of the ball as well. So usually you might have one or two players that are going to be your tacklers that will go and do 40, 50 tackles a game, but they might do 3 hit-ups, where he's out there running over 100 meters and leading the tackle count and just giving his all. I was quite happy with his signing when it was announced a while back. I thought he had a lot of potential. He kind of dipped, but I think this year we're really starting to see him grow. And
agreed.
It's good signs. It's going to be interesting when Tohu's back, because Aitken's kind of making second row his new position. Curran's there, Tohu, Ben Murdoch, Basila, Jazz Tavanga. There's a lot of players, and they can't all be out there at the same time. Depth is great, but it'll be interesting to see what they do next season when everyone's back fit. But it's a good problem to have. It's better than having no one.
Absolutely. Another thing I noticed, and I know at times we've put Nathan Brown under the microscope, but starting with Aitken in second row, and I think a couple of times Villiers down his side got skinned a couple times defensively and led to Cronulla's tries, and then making the call to move Aitken out to the centre, I think was a good call and shored us up down there, and then he ended up shrugging off Chambers to get the game-winning try, which is really good. I thought that was a good call, and got to give him some props for that.
Yeah, definitely. It was a good call to pull him out there. Especially we've been avoiding the subject, but we may as well jump into it. When Kane Evans got sin-binned, thanks, Paul. When Kane Evans got sin-binned and you had that one-man advantage, that's when Villiers started to struggle. I don't know how many games he's been in with a guy on the bench. So kind of trying to fill that hole. That's where they targeted him. Rightly so, the Sharks, they had the one-man advantage and they targeted the guy with the least amount of experience, which is a great attacking ploy, and it worked for them for that short stint. Where we won't cover the sledging as much because I've got a question about sledging for you in the middle of the show. But
Sure.
Will Chambers was getting in on it on basically everyone on the pitch, and Kane Evans lashed out, got sin binned twice. First one was a sin bin. He threw a punch. It was, if you can call it a punch, it was a bit of a he did a ton of and hit him with a handbag.
Yeah.
Yeah, so silly. Flash it up again if you want, Paul. But if a punch is a sin bin. If you're gonna get sin bin for a punch, make it count. Hit him on the jaw or something. But yeah, I thought it was a weak attempt and he got sin bin. The second sin binning, though, I don't think was a sin bin. I know they said it was a head slam tackle, but if you looked at the tackle before the punch that Evans got hit with, and then the tackle that Chambers got hit with, they were almost identical.
Yeah.
The only difference is Chambers, when he gets hit in a tackle like that, can hold on to the ball. When Evans does it, he loses the ball. But yeah, so the first one I'm with, that's a sin bin. The rules are you throw a punch, you get sent to the bin. So there's no argument there. He threw a punch. But yeah, the second one, I think it was a bit hard done by, but I credit the Warriors for that second one. They were a man down. It didn't affect them like it did in the first one. The first one, it looked like the game was over. The Sharks swung momentum. It looked bad. But they survived in the second half. They survived that first opening stage with one man out and then got themselves back in the game. And yeah, they had already got the ball rolling. By the time they lost Evans again, there was no looking back. They just knew how to defend better. I suppose they're used to it now, used to playing one man. There was another sin binning to Chanel at the end of the game for deliberately delaying the play of the game. I've got an interesting question because I asked it. It's a penalty because they laid down on the tackle, but how come the attacking team doesn't get the same type of punishment when they take 30 seconds to play the ball, pretending that they've been injured? It's the exact same thing. The only difference is the defender's slowing the play down as opposed to the ball player. Should they be looking at a way to try to shore that up, where if you're deliberately slowing the ball down because you're trying to wind up clock, that you potentially get penalized and lose the ball?
That's a good question, Brad. I mean, defensively, slowing the ruck down is always a penalty, or always should be.
Yeah,
especially deliberately like that. But you're right. On the attacking side of the coin, you never see anything done about that at all, really, do you? Sometimes people milk that for quite a long time and fake a cramp and things like that. Yeah, maybe it's an unsportsmanlike thing that they can look at doing something.
And yeah, it's a thing that all teams do. It's not like if you're in the lead and it's coming down to the final minute, all 16 clubs go in. Yeah, they've all got stitches or cramps or that. But if I don't know, if you get penalized on the ball, you should be penalized off the ball, or vice versa, in my opinion. But it's we don't want them changing all the rules at the same time.
No, I guess not. And I guess one more thing, which was quite important in the game, with a few minutes left and the Sharks down by 2, they get a penalty and well in goal kicking range and decide to go for a try. Your thoughts on that? Because that to me just screamed they're lacking leadership on the field and were lacking their main halves. Obviously, Sean Johnson not being there. Surely you kick the 2 and send it into extra time.
I've got to counter it a little bit because the players elected for the 2, and it was Josh Hanna, the coach, that said go for the try.
I heard that. Do you reckon he's just covering for them? Because surely if they had a good captain and leader on the field, they would take the 2, surely.
Yeah, I would like to think that in the same situation, the Warriors, if it was Fanua Blake or Tohu or whoever the captain of the week is, in that situation, the captain would override it and take the 2 and then take it on the chin if the coach wants to give you a blue later on. But in that situation, in that time frame, you got to go, like, as horrible as potentially going to Golden Point is, it's better than losing at full time because you didn't try to even it up. And then you fast forward a couple of minutes to when they got that penalty and they had to try a 2-point field goal from like 40, 50 meters out.
It's ridiculous.
Which would have just taken in the Golden Point anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not bad call from them there.
I'm not complaining.
Definitely not. I was worried when the penalty happened. I thought the penalty was very light, as I do with most penalties. But yeah, when that happened, I thought they were going to just roll over. I thought they were just going to roll over, but they not only that, they went for it. They went and kicked early as well. I think if they had had a few more hit-ups, they might have got through the Warriors' defense. But I think that was a key thing for the Warriors, where their goal line defense was actually really good, with the majority of the Sharks' tries coming from deep. When they got closer to the Warriors' line, the Warriors knew how to keep them out, which is a great sign to see for the Warriors, with a potentially easy run home and, believe it or not, a still sliver of hope of making the playoffs. If they can keep their defense a bit better and increase their attack a bit more, they could potentially go on a bit of a run.
Hope so.
And yeah, and Nigel said 5-second play the ball if tacklers are off the player. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Richie, is that a hope so, or is that you want some of what Brad's smoking?
No,
we have a chance.
Looking at our run home, it's, I don't want to say the winnable word, because every time I've said winnable games, we've lost them. But you know, our run home is about as gentle as you'd like it to be. But it does depend on other teams losing games they should lose as well. So it's not completely in our own hands, but you know, if we win our games,
you guys have been drawing the line above the Warriors for a while now. Let's be honest.
And I still will. Will.
Yeah, I still think it's unlikely.
They just still have a chance. As silly as it sounds, Paul, the third to last team, if things go their way, still have the potential to end 7th. That's how tight it is. I personally don't see the Warriors. Yeah, so Simon said he thinks the Warriors will finish at 9. I've got them finishing 9 or 10th in my calculations.
Is 9th actually the worst place to finish in the ladder? Is it worse than 16th?
Well, it upsets the Tigers, because the Tigers, that's their spot. The Tigers are 9th all the time. So I was having an argument in my household, because I said, if you squeak into the 8 and then lose in the first week of playoffs and get eliminated, is that better than finishing in the bottom 8?
Absolutely. You made the taste finals footy.
You made the taste, but you were there as an afterthought and eliminated quickly. So yeah, you did make it, but you made it one extra week. But the Warriors, if there's any team you don't want to face when they're 8th, it's the Warriors, because that's when the Warriors seem to be their most dangerous.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, I don't see them making the 8, but I like the fact that they're still in the conversation, at least on this side of the Tasman. Everyone in Australia has written us off. So, but yeah. It's good. Yeah, it's better than being in the situation like the Bulldogs and the Broncos, where you could win every game by 100. You're not going to go anywhere. But yeah, and it's going to make it a more enjoyable ride, at least, which is good for us as Warriors fans and for the show. So that takes us to the next game on Saturday. These were the two more games on Saturday were kind of like the main events for the round. We had the Panthers defeating the Roosters 20-14. Roosters came to play. They did a lot better than I thought. I thought the Panthers, even without Nathan Cleary, I thought the Panthers were still going to towel them up a bit. But they really came fighting. Jared Waerea-Hargreaves got sin-binned in a call that I thought was a bit tough, but yeah, I think Matt Burton was really the difference in this game.
He was great. He had a great game.
Yeah, he was a star out there. He's I think it's the first game, potentially all year, that I've seen Matt Burton comfortable in the halves. It really looked like he took ownership of that position, and he ran for over 200 meters himself. He scored 2 tries, made 3 line breaks. He kind of did everything you want to see there. He still has a lot of work to do, but the Bulldogs have got themselves a winner if this is the Matt Burton that comes. If you go back a few weeks to the less confident Matt Burton, then the Bulldogs will struggle. But yeah, I think this is the Matt Burton that they've paid them big money for. But yeah, I think it was a tough encounter. And I think they're both the Panthers and Roosters will both take a lot of lessons out of this game that they'll take into the finals. I think the Panthers, they know they've got a gritty game there under their belt now, which I think they missed last year. A lot of the games were quite easy for them, which when they got that tough encounter in the grand final, they weren't able to front. So getting a few tough games under their belt, I think, is going to help them in the long run. And the Roosters, I think they'll probably get a lot of confidence out of this, that they're under strength, but they went up against one of the best teams of the comp and almost got the win. So that will probably fill them with a bit more confidence once they hit playoffs. But what do you think of this matchup?
I think it will fill them with a bit of confidence hanging in there against the Panthers like that. Panthers still minus Cleary, but and they haven't been the Panthers of the first half of this year of late, but they've still been winning. They're still top 2 sides, so the Roosters will take a bit of confidence out of that, as will the Panthers having performances like they did out of Matt Burton. That'll make them feel good. Jared Waerea-Hargreaves sin-binning, bit tough. I know you think that's a bit tough, Brad. And I know Trent Robinson came out in his press conference too and said, that's great if you're going to call that, but why isn't that called the 20 other times in the game that happens?
Yeah. Why?
It's weird.
Why is it not?
Yeah, I know. I mean, he brings up a good point. It's a strange one for me. And Api Koroisau too, ending up with a suspension out of this game. Hate to keep inviting the thug life thing popping up, but what do you think of that? Because it didn't look like a lot either.
No, I didn't think there was anything in it. We can move on. But yeah, we're good game. Good enjoyable footy to watch. Which takes us to my game of the round. The last game on Saturday with the Storm defeating Manly 28-18. I think this game just really it showed how dangerous Manly can be, but it also showed how good the Storm are at just winning. This is the first match since round 8 of this year that the Storm weren't leading at halftime, but they were tied at halftime. At least they weren't behind. And Jason Saab, I think, got a great try. Nice intercept try here, but I still don't believe he's shown us how fast he can go yet, because it still looks like he's just on a Sunday jog.
Yeah, that's all he needs.
It's all he needs. So I think if he ever gets the ball in an intercept situation, you may as well just not even bother. You may as well just let him go and go, okay, we won't pass that way again.
I'd love to see him have a foot race with Addo-Carr side by side, though. That'd be a good one. That'd be interesting. I don't think Addo-Carr would stand a chance, in my humble opinion. I think Saab way too quick. Addo-Carr is fast, but yeah, I think Saab's at another level. And Paul said in the background, Hammies will ping at full speed. That could be it. Yeah. Once he unleashes at full speed, and maybe his body won't handle it, and that's why he knows to go like just half or 3/4 pace. But yeah, for the Storm, I think everyone knows the key to beating Manly is to keep Tommy Turbo out of the game.
They managed to contain him quite well, but he still had a decent night. So everyone talked about how well they kept him contained, but he set up 2 tries, had 5 tackle breaks, and I think is still the best player in the game right now. Obviously he would have liked to have more impact on the game, but being completely shackled by the Storm defense, he still managed to cause plenty of trouble.
I think he's the kind of player where you can't completely shut down. You kind of just sort of try and mitigate the impact he does have. And I think the Storm did that quite well by completing their sets and holding the ball. And consequently, they have the ball. Tommy doesn't have as much ball.
Exactly.
But what he did have, he still did pretty well. And I think Manly will take a lot of confidence again, sort of like the Roosters in the previous game, hanging in there with the top team who have been slaying everybody. And they weren't far away. You know, a couple of mistakes. I think Tommy spilt a bomb that resulted in a try, and I think Garrick failed to clean up a grubber that ended up in a try as well. So, you know, they weren't really far off, despite the Storm playing quite well. They were right in there. It's just a couple of little things went the Storm way that didn't go the Sea Eagles way, and that was the difference.
Definitely. And you were talking about confidence, so I want to bring up Ryan Papenhuyzen. I think he still looks a little bit off the pace, and he's not the player that we saw before his injury. It's not a situation where he's never going to go back to that. I think he's just lacking some confidence after spending so long out. And for the Storm, I think they'll be hoping he bounces back sooner rather than later. But it's not an unconfident Ryan Papenhuyzen is still probably better than a lot of other players that you can have. Admittedly, they've got Nico Hines, who's been playing really well. But I think, the Storm will want him back at 100% once they get into finals footy, because they'll want their best foot forward. Because as you saw here from Manly, I think you put that into an elimination style game, take that bounce of the ball with some unfortunate errors that Manly made out of it, and it's an even competition, and I think they could potentially get an upset there. So as I've been saying for like the past month, I've still got Melbourne winning the whole thing, but I've got Manly as a smoky to come in and upset it all.
I don't like either team, but at least it's exciting having Manly perform this way and at least throwing some doubt in your mind, because I think a lot of people have been picking Storm outright for more than half the season this year. So to have a team come up in such great form and at least throw a shadow of doubt on that is good.
Yeah, and Simon said Melbourne Storm the greatest expansion team in rugby league anywhere in the world. I don't like them, but you can't argue with it. They are as good as you can get. And it's not they have a little pocket of form and then they go off. They're consistently one of the best teams around. They're not winning it every year, but they're always in the conversation, which I think as a fan, that's what you want from your team. Ideally, in the ideal world, no team's going to win it every year and dominate forever. But if your team's always up there and it got a shot to get there, you can't ask for much more. So it's amazing what they've done in the relatively short time they've been around in the big scheme of things.
Remarkable.
As horrible as it is for me to say. But that takes me to the first game on Sunday. We had the Tigers defeating the Bulldogs 28-16. Not really too much to say here. It's kind of what I expected. Both teams aren't really playing their best footy, but the Bulldogs are just not a footy team right now, as horrible as that sounds. I was surprised they got 16 points, but it was against the Tigers. I think for the Tigers, though, Adam Doueihi led them quite well. It was good to see Ken Mamalo get a double. Good to see him continue his ways of scoring tries after a bit of a brief drought since he joined the club. In the forwards, I think Luciano Leilua was a nightmare great for the Bulldogs.
He was really good.
And the Bulldogs, they show up and fight, and I think they were just let down by poor discipline and lackluster attacking options.
Yeah, that's been the story of the whole season, really. Yeah, it was a tough game. And looking at the schedule before the round started, you didn't exactly circle this game and say, oh, this is a must-watch. This is going to be a box office footy. And, at times it looked like both teams were struggling, but, the Dogs, as they do, find a way to lose. And as bad as the Tigers were and as much grief as they got for losing to us the previous week, they found a way. You brought up Dewey, I thought, and saying how he led the Tigers really well. That's a good point. I think it almost looks like, I don't know if it was me, I'd have him as my captain. I know I've seen little clips here and there from the documentary on the West Tigers, and it just looks like he bleeds the colours. He really has a big passion. He looks like captain material to me. I wouldn't mind seeing him captain if I were the Tigers. But Luciano Leilua was dangerous and had some really great numbers out of that game. And I don't know about the Bulldogs. They don't look great. So in theory, they shouldn't worry us Warriors fans this week. But a couple of suspensions throws a bit of nerves.
Throws a spanner in the works. Yeah. And Simon says the Dogs really let him down this week. He was shocked the Tigers won a match. So you should have been with us on our picks because we picked this one. It's one of those games. Like I said, both teams aren't playing that well. No. So it really depends on which team was going to play just a little bit better. That will get the job done. And that's what we saw. It's good to see for Tigers fans. They would have been happy with the win, but it wasn't the most dominant display. Especially when you're playing the wooden spooners, you kind of want to expect a bit more points coming your way and maybe a bit more of a dominant display. We'll record this, or it's recording anyway for when we talk about how the Warriors go. Unfortunate for the Bulldogs. They've got a tough road ahead, and I know they're all just waiting for all those players to turn up for next season. They've still got a few more weeks to go before they can start dreaming about that. And that brings us to the final game of the round, with the Titans defeating the Cowboys 36-14. I think for the last game of the round, it kind of gave me exactly what I expected, Richie. A strong win from the Titans. What did you think?
Yeah, absolutely. They suffocated the Cowboys out of the game and kept a lot of the ball. They just did what they needed to do, and they had a lot of people who had decent games. I thought, that the halves looked good, and Fafita looked good off the bench. Even the centers, Kelly and Paddy Herbert, looked dangerous. Yep. But the Cowboys had no answer. They just got suffocated out of the game, and Cowboys fall further into the hole they're in right now. I think it's 8 in a row. What did the Titans have? Something like 60% possession. So
it was. They ended the game on 60%.
They really just put them to the sword, and they're looking good. After I wrote them off 3 weeks ago, that's why I hate talking about them now, because ever since I did that, they've been playing bloody well and scoring a lot of points. But they took advantage of a Cowboys side that's really low on confidence right now, and puts them in a nice spot, leaves fate in their own hands, for a top 8 spot, because they're in the 8 now, and they just need to keep chipping away and winning, and they're in one of the prime spots to claim 7th or 8th.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely where they end up is definitely in their own hands, which is the position you want to be. You want to be controlling your own destiny. And the Cowboys are still lacking that desire that we talked about last week that Todd Payton said that his team needs.
Big time.
Not sure what he can do. right now to light a fire under them, but hopefully he knows how to figure it out soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, yeah. So that was round 21. We got every game right for the first time this year. We are 8 for 8, which puts us at 117 out of 160 each. So we're still tied. We've got one game different this week for spoilers for our preview. But yeah, so we'll see someone in the lead at the end of the round. And Paul, do you want to bring up the ladder? So we may as well skip. You got Melbourne, Penrith at the top, Rabbitohs third, Eels fourth, Roosters fifth, Manly sixth. Those are all set in stone. You'll see some switches. I still think Manly will sneak into the 4, but those 6 will be in the 6 one way or another. The only interesting part really is from 7th to 14th. As we mentioned before with Paul, basically any of those teams can end up in the 8. But we've got the Raiders and the Titans in there at 7th and 8th at the moment. I've got them in Newcastle. Yeah. I think are the only ones that potentially can make the 8.
Newcastle have a nice cushy run home, don't they?
They do, and I think the Raiders will be the ones that miss out because I still think the Raiders will end up losing to the Warriors later down the track, and they have a horrible run. So I think taking the Warriors glasses off, I think it'll be Titans and Knights with the Raiders, Sharks, and everyone else falling out. So yeah, that's the ladder. We don't need to go into the full days on everyone else. Really, it's really just about them. I think those 3 additions with, unfortunately, the Sharks, Dragons, Warriors, and Tigers and Cowboys missing out.
If the Warriors, as well, they should, the Warriors' next couple games, 16th and 15th, Bulldogs and Broncos, they win those 2, then they have to play 7th and 8th. If we take care of 15th and 16th, do you start getting excited, Brad?
Yeah. Yeah. We take each game one at a time, as the old cliche says, Richie.
I like it.
Want to keep the optimism at an all-time middle right now. Because there was before when I was quite confident in the Warriors, they had a spat of like 4 or 5 games that I said these are easy wins before they have to play the big dogs, and then they lost all of those games.
No, I'm there with you.
You
temper your excitement, then you can't be disappointed too much.
Yeah, as exciting as it is to see them playing the bottom 2 teams for the next fortnight, there's always that little bit of fear in the back of my head. Because it's the Warriors. Sometimes you just don't know. But yeah, so do we have any questions from everyone out in the crowd there, Paul?
Well, actually, I'll kick you off. So, with obviously last year we had the Brisbane Broncos, or the fans turning up throwing wooden spoons into the training ground. Is that going to be a tradition? Do you think that we'll see the same from the Bulldogs fans turning up and throwing wooden spoons into their training ground, or is that just purely a Brisbane thing?
I think that's just an angry reaction from the Broncos fans because they're not used to that. The Bulldogs are used to being wooden spoon. As harsh as that sounds, it's kind of been their thing the last couple of years. So with all the signings they got coming up, I think it's more it sucks that we're at the bottom this year, but we're not going to be at the bottom next year. So I think that's going to temper some of that. The Broncos, it was just because the Broncos don't get wooden spoons. That's kind of their mentality. So the fact that they were down there and doing that well, there was an angry lash out. It's funny. I thought it was enjoyable. I think it was a lot better reaction. Like throwing wooden spoons on the field, other than making the groundskeeper's job a bit more difficult, I think it's a lot better than seeing people like burning jerseys and things like that.
And abusing players.
Well, yeah, we're not in the UK, Paul. We're not in the UK. We're not like that.
But it is over in Australia, remember? I mean, geez, it's weird over the ditch. Yeah, no, exactly. It was a humorous response which I enjoyed. Nigel's got a long one for us. He says, with COVID and all, these last 2 years and potentially more to come, I believe, and also asking for both your opinions. So, yeah, both of you have to respond to this one. Isn't the Warriors the only team who would suffer the most on player development? And what would you like to see the NRL do to help rebuild the club? We are affiliated with the Dolphins, but don't have our own standalone feeder club due to what's going on in the world. And how does that affect the club in the future? Richie, take it away.
You do it, Richie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think definitely our development suffered, and Brad touched on it a little bit earlier. You know, a lot of our players that sort of sit the tier below have gone off to play club footy in Auckland, which is a completely different kettle of fish. What would we like to see the NRL do to help rebuild the club? That's a tough one because we don't even know when the club's going to get back to some sort of normality and have a home base. So, yeah, there's still a lot all up in the air. Having Gus Gould there was a good step for a while, but now he's sort of backed off to help out the Bulldogs as well. And yeah, it's a tough one, Nigel. If I knew, I might apply for a job.
I was going to say, actually, do they need rebuilding? I mean, there's an assumption here they need rebuilding. Do they need rebuilding?
Well, they need something because they haven't got anything. So that is kind of rebuilding because they're building from nothing. So, Nigel, you're still watching. You can write down Richard didn't answer your question, but he skirted around it. He skirted around it like a champion. So I give him points for that. In terms of them being the most affected, they are, yep, because everyone else's camps are in Australia and they can, well, up until recently, they could kind of travel around and do all that stuff. We did have the Jersey Flegg team, which was doing really well. As I mentioned earlier, they were going to Australia and playing the Jersey Flegg teams there, getting some great experience and actually beating them, which was a great sign for the youngsters. Then COVID happened, they all got sent back. Gil did get stuff in place, and they've actually hired people at his request to do certain things to develop the pathways. The biggest issue, though, is you can have those pathways, but if we can't send them to play teams in Australia, it's all for nothing, because then we've got players developing and then they're going to end up stuck in the local comp, which isn't at the level it should be, i.e. I've played in that. So if I'm playing it, it's not that great. Don't
put yourself down. You're one injury away from the big time.
Yeah. Maybe a plane crash, so our whole team got wiped out or something.
Or just general fitness rather than injury, but no.
Yeah, but they need to do something. It's always a tough margin because the NRL really don't have to do anything if they wanted to be pricks about it. As long as the Warriors have a team, they don't care if they're good or bad, as long as they've got 16 teams. Yeah. It keeps the money coming in. And what the Warriors need to kind of do right now is there's a lot of NRL teams that have camps in New Zealand, where the Roosters have got one in Ellerslie, where they get local players and get them early, develop them, and then send them to Australia when they can. At the moment, they don't have a lot of that freedom because of COVID. So now's really the time to try to strike and get a lot of those young players that all these other teams are trying to take. But they need to do something. I forgot to mention it. This Sunday, they were meant to be playing at Mount Smart, as we all knew. And that's not happening anymore. But the development players are actually playing a game at Mount Smart. So they split the development into two teams and they're playing to do stuff. They need to be a bit more creative at the moment to do things like that, where even if you have to play yourselves or you've got first graders that currently aren't playing first grade, play against them or do something until things open up. They're really stuck in a holding pattern until the borders open, because you want your young boys playing Australian teams to develop, just because we don't have the skill sets here. So I don't even know if I answered the question, but I said a lot of things.
But Simon makes a good point that as part of the new TV deal, Sky are supposed to be helping develop the grassroots level here in New Zealand. I mean, have you seen anything of that so far?
Not as yet, but it's because there's basically been nothing. It's not something that's going to develop overnight. It's literally getting everything in the pathways, as they say. They like using pathways a lot because it's a different beast to what the Australians are used to, because the Warriors are competing not only against 15 other NRL clubs, but there's this little team that likes wearing a black jersey that's running around. That's where the majority of your talent disappears to. Yeah, see, like some stupid, it's some team that seems to only get better once they take league players, but we'll leave it there. It's an argument for another time. But yeah, they're always fighting the battle against Union. I know from my experience when I was in high school, I wasn't allowed to play league. It was Union or nothing. That was the school's prerogative. So you've even got things like that where you got schools kind of telling you're not going to play that thug sport. You're going to play Union. So they've got battles everywhere.
My school didn't even have a league team. It was just Union or nothing.
So they're fighting that battle as well. But it's a long progress. It's the money in that from Sky is going to help, but it's not something we're going to see bear fruit in the next couple of years.
Cool. That's the questions from the live chat, guys.
Cool. Nice. So we'll go into our Thug Life section with our questions. So I'll go with my one first because I feel like your one might go a bit longer.
Sure.
Will Chambers was the talk of the town this week with the sledging. What is your opinion on his sledging and sledging in general?
Oh, all right. So his sledging, I don't know exactly what was said. I've heard little things from NRL 360, James Hooper and whatnot, that maybe he went a bit personal and we're talking about people's families and wives, that kind of thing I'm not a fan of. Sledging in general, it's a favourite pastime of Australians, isn't it? Like you look at their cricket teams, all their league teams, they do it. The key thing is to have a thick skin and not let it get to you. And that's where Kane Evans really let himself down on the weekend by basically taking the bait and throwing a couple punches. Whereas if he just played hard, smashed him in some tackles, he wouldn't have got sin-binned, and we would probably be talking about a much more comfortable win for the Warriors. So I don't think you're going to get rid of sledging. It's just going to happen. It's ingrained in the game. It's ingrained in the psyche of Australian sports. You just got to be the bigger man and rise above it legally.
You continue to disappoint me. I love it. I love it. I love sledging. The thing here, though, is it's a different opinion than what I've seen in the media and from other people. But Chambers has always been known as a sledger, but he's usually on a team winning. I think there's nothing stupider than you sledging when you're behind. When your team's not doing well and you're sitting there, and like he might, like everyone was saying that he won because from his sledging the Warriors have had 3 suspensions, but the Warriors won because of him as well, because he didn't know how to tackle and he dropped off a tackle on Ewan Aiken.
That's the way I look at it too, mate. He did it last week for 5 or 6 minutes against who was it? Dylan Walker. That game he missed 6 tackles and got hooked. Yeah. This game he missed 6 tackles and he missed the game-winning try. And now he's been dropped. So who wins really?
Yeah. So yeah, as much as I don't mind sledging, I don't have a lot of limits in terms of sledging myself, but there are limits. There are limits, and you gotta. It's very similar to, I think we were talking about like a few weeks ago about how some players speak to their teammates. You got to know, like I might be able to say something to you, Richie, that I might not be able to say to Paul, because you guys would take it differently. So you got to pick and choose.
I've known you. I've known you 20 odd years, Brad, and I think all 20 of those years you've been dating my mum. So I know you like a sledge.
Yeah. So it is what it is. But you got to back it up. Like, yeah, you piss some people off and you got yourselves some ball and whatnot, but you're not winning games. You got to win games, and that's why he got dropped, because he might be talking the talk, but he isn't walking the walk.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%.
And your question for me.
All right, time to thug life bait again. Our good old mate Jack Hetherington, we love him. You love him, I love him. Great player, plays very aggressively and at the threshold quite often. He got sin-binned again on the weekend. I thought it was a really weak call from the officials. I've seen far worse, even very recently, let go with nothing. Do you think he's now been targeted by referees just because of his reputation and previous 100%. Indiscretions? Yeah. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, that doesn't seem like a very fair go for Jack.
It's again cliche, because I'm saying a sin bin shouldn't have been a sin bin. I think it was an aggressive tackle, but I don't think there was anything sin bin worthy in it.
No.
But he is the guy that's known for getting sin binned every game, basically. So for him, he has to basically play to the letter of the law every time. So there's nothing. I think even if he did, I think if he hit someone chest height and they acted like they got hurt, he'd probably get sent to the bin, because that's his reputation. He has no one to blame but himself for that reputation. He's got himself in that situation by being reckless. Reckless is probably the nicest way to say it in the past. But yeah, getting punished on your reputation isn't what should be happening in a game.
No.
You should be punished for your actions, and yeah, it's gonna set a bad example for any guy. Like, even I'm trying to think. I can't think of any other players out there right now that kind of have that similar reputation.
Maybe Victor Radley.
Victor Radley, yeah. So it's like Victor Radley said he wasn't going to change his attacking or like his defending style. And he hasn't, but we haven't seen him get pinged on it as much anymore, where Jack probably does need to make some adjustments, but it almost feels like every time he makes a tackle, there's a penalty involved. And I don't think he's making illegal tackles every tackle. So, yeah, I think if we see it forming a habit, I think it might be something the Bulldogs need to speak with the refs about like, you're picking on our guy because he's got a reputation as a meathead thug. We need to kind of sort this out, because it's affecting games now.
Yeah, well, he's an aggressive player. The last thing you want is to have him dial it back, because I think that makes him far less effective as a player. You know, his whole game is aggression. You know, as long as he's doing it within the areas where he should be, then there shouldn't be a problem with that.
Yeah, exactly. And I also had a question from Andrew, the editor of Nothing But League, but we're running super long, so I'm going to keep that question for us next week. So I've still got it here. And Andrew, I know you listen later on due to the time difference in Australia, but we'll answer your question next week. So we may as well go straight into our predictions for round 22. Richie?
Okay.
So we got it here. Thursday night, we've got the Storm and Raiders. I've gone with the Storm. I think you're kind of silly if you're picking against the Storm at the moment.
Yep, 100%. I went Storm, which helps the Warriors and our faint glimmer of hope.
Definitely. First game on Friday, we've got the Dragons and the Panthers. Kind of rinse and repeat from the first game. I've gone with Panthers because I just don't see them struggling against the Dragons.
No, Panthers will win that one again. Helps the Warriors.
Helps the Warriors. The last game on Friday, we got the Broncos Roosters. I've gone with the Roosters. They're still one of the top teams despite their injuries, and the Broncos are still, as much as they're fighting, I don't think they've got what it takes to beat the Roosters. So,
yeah, Roosters look a class above. I've gone same as you.
Yeah. First game on Saturday, we've got Rabbitohs Titans. I've gone with the Rabbitohs. I think Titans have been showing some great form, but I think the Rabbitohs are on another level compared to them.
Yep, I would pick Rabbitohs. It's so hard to pick against them the last few weeks. They're playing amazing, and I really hope this isn't the week that stops, because this would help the Warriors.
There's a theme going here. The second game on Saturday is the game we've actually got different here. We've got the Cowboys versus Tigers. I've gone with the Tigers because I feel it's that lack of desire. I think it's going to affect the Cowboys, and Jason Taumalolo is not playing. Both teams aren't great by any means, but I think that might give them the edge.
Both teams have been a dog's breakfast, to be honest. Cowboys are on an 8-game streak, so surely that 8-game losing streak has to come to an end. And who better than the Tigers? They tend to, if they win one, they tend to drop the next game. So I'm following the pattern.
Yeah, definitely. And then the last game on Saturday, we've got Sea Eagles versus the Eels. I've gone with Sea Eagles. The Eels continue to fall, and I think, yeah, despite losing against the Storm, I think the Sea Eagles are just too good right now.
Yeah, Sea Eagles too good. Eels, no Reed Mahoney, and they're in a hole. I think Eagles do that one.
And then first game on Sunday, we've got Warriors Bulldogs. Both of these games getting played at Redcliffe as well. I forgot to mention that. They're getting some games at Redcliffe, which is good to see. But I've gone with the Warriors here. It's always nerve-wracking for me when the Warriors are playing the last place team, because it seems to be a game they sometimes slip on. But I think they're going to be too strong for the Bulldogs, so I'm picking them here.
Fingers, toes, everything crossed. Everything crossed, but yes, I've tipped the Warriors.
Nice. And then the last game, we've got the Sharks Knights. This was probably one of the harder ones for me to pick, but I've gone with the Knights. I think the Sharks, they just don't seem to know how to win right now, and I think the Knights, with Mitchell Pearce back, I think will have enough to get over them here.
Yeah, I went Knights as well. Both teams have a lot to play for, but I think the Knights have got all their key pieces of the puzzle back, and the Sharks are still missing their one big key piece of their puzzle. So Knights for me.
Definitely. So that's our picks. I think we had Simon's picks there, Paul. Can you find them again? I've lost them. There we go. So Simon's picked the Storm by 14, Panthers by 8, Roosters by 8, Titans by 4, Cowboys by 6, Sea Eagles by 8, Warriors by 8, and Knights by 4.
Hopefully he gets that Titans one wrong.
Fingers crossed he does, yeah. But yeah, and I see he's actually asked a question about the Warriors there too. Saying, have the Warriors ever played a match on Thursday? No, they never have.
I don't think so.
I don't know why. I think it's probably to do with the time difference. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know why. They seem to luck out on that. Same as on the Mondays. I think we might have had one Monday game when they used to play Monday Night Football. But yeah, so yeah, all got the same picks, bar that Tigers-Cowboys game. So there'll be a definite leader next week.
It might also be travel related, in the fact around turnaround between weeks, when they're based in New Zealand.
True, very true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we've run super long again, like we did last week. So we won't cover the Super League again. There wasn't really much to say. Warrington versus Hull FC got postponed due to some Hull FC players getting COVID. For some reason, though, their game this week is still scheduled. They're meant to be playing Catalan. So at the moment, they're they're still classed to be okay to play. And Willie Poaching is being promoted to coach Wakefield Trinity. They were my news that I had for Super League.
Well, a massive one in the live chat. Saying that there's been some talk about restructuring the competition over the last couple of weeks, and apparently Sky TV in the UK, which is a different company to Sky over here in New Zealand, has said that the competition's got 2 years to get their act in order and to improve the level of the competition, or there's no new TV deal.
Wow,
which would be that would be a massive loss to them. So yeah, potentially some pretty serious stuff needs to happen in the UK. Around this. So we'll keep an eye on that.
In their defense, we'll keep an eye on it. In their defense, I don't think COVID's helped them a lot the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It's really affected them. Like almost every week there's a game or two postponed. Games are getting chopped and changed everywhere, which it doesn't help you with your Sky TV deal if even your fans don't know when you're playing, or they go to watch you and you've been cancelled and there's a game you didn't even know was on instead. Trying to keep in track of it for results, even for this show, and trying to watch it has been a nightmare. Games get cancelled and you have to be an internet sleuth to try to figure out what happened. Because even the Super League website doesn't promote that a game's been postponed. It just ceases to exist. They remove it and you have to go and find it on another website to find out why. So if it was NRL and I go to watch the game on Sunday with the Warriors and all of a sudden there's a replay of a Warriors game from 5 years ago because the game was cancelled and they forgot to tell me, I'd be disappointed too. So,
yeah, look, I think obviously the NRL has got more cash at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But what they have done is when there's been a problem, they've all head off to a certain location where they can keep playing. Have had some pretty strict protocols where like a player went onto a balcony and got done for COVID breach. I mean, that's really harsh. I mean, they've really have properly bubbled and gone, right, we are going to go ahead and we will do what we have to. I'm not sure that the Super League has got the same cash, or maybe has not gone to the same lengths, and hence that's why they're losing games. But anyway, that's pure conjecture on my part, as I don't follow Super League at all, but that would be my guess.
Yeah, they seem to be a little bit less strict on trying to keep their players. And like Simon said, their Super League, they're only committed to have 2 games, like twice a week type thing. So they're not even as strict as the NRL. The NRL need to have at least 8 games a week or they lose money. Yeah. Which is why they went so hard and gave the Warriors so much help last year to bring them over. Because if the Warriors didn't go, it effectively cost the NRL millions of dollars.
Yep.
So, And, Simon also said about the protocols there. They seem to be doing what they want.
What I suggested, happening.
So, but yeah, that's it for tonight, everyone. So thank you for joining us tonight and joining in on the Standoff with Brad and Richie for your weekly update on rugby league. Tune into our show next week at 8 p.m. Here on Facebook or at your convenience on iHeartRadio. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. You guys got anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, thanks everybody for chewing the fat with us again. It's a good time.
And this was the 49th episode, folks. So look out for the next episode, which will be number 50.
Number 50, milestone. That's right.
We can raise the bat. Milestone time.
Catch you all next time.